Well, good morning again. Good morning again. So we've got 31 persons who have joined us. Why don't we start and just jump right into it? So hello, I'm Natasha Levy and welcome to this data privacy training information session. The session is being brought to you by Symptai Consulting. Our guests today, we have joining us Byron Johnson. Hi, Byron. And Byron is the Channel Sales Manager for the North American region for the International Association of Privacy Professionals, or the IAPP. Now, the IAPP, for those of you who don't know, is the largest and most comprehensive global information privacy community and resource. It was founded in 2000, and it's a not-for-profit organization that helps to define, promote, and improve the privacy professional globally. Next, or our second guest, is Andrew Nooks, and he is our Chief Risk Intelligence Officer at Symptai Consulting. Symptai Consulting is a leading cybersecurity, digital transformation, and anti-money laundering firm in the Caribbean, based in Jamaica, and the company recently celebrated its 24th anniversary. So our guests are going to be exploring data privacy training, and specifically the CIPT today. Now, the CIPT, for those of you who don't know, is the Certified Information Privacy Technologist. That is a mouthful. So welcome, Byron, and welcome, Andrew. How are you both today?
Doing great, thanks. Happy Friday. It's great to be here.
Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
Thank you, Natasha, for the intro. And good morning, everybody. I see some familiar names in the chat. So
do you know?
Have some questions for us. Yes.
I'm sure. So I'm going to jump right in, but before I jump right in, I'm just some housekeeping matters. So for all of our persons who are participating right now, as we go along, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A section. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a little tab or a little menu button that says Q&A. That's where you go, click on it, drop your questions in there, and either someone on the panel or one of our production team, they'll make sure that your questions are answered. Okay, so Byron, we're going to jump right into it, and I'm going to give you the first question. Byron, why do I need data privacy training?
Great question, Natasha. Thanks so much for being here, everyone. Really appreciate it. Data protection training is becoming more and more relevant, even to some of those who haven't been touched by data privacy regulation yet. You may know or may not know, if not, great that you're here. Jamaica passed its Jamaican Data Protection Act in 2020. This is going to be changing the roles of technologists and the people that build out products and services a bit because of the requirements that law has on businesses. Now you have a May 2022 deadline to come into compliance with that law. And really we are seeing that one of the big groups affected by that law and regulation all around the world, the Jamaica Data Protection Act is very closely related to the GDPR passed back in 2018, and really the comprehensive global privacy law that most people are being affected by just because of the size and scope of the EU. What we're really seeing is that technologists and the people that are really in charge of doing the work behind the scenes to bring products and services to market in this digital economy need to start thinking about things like privacy, because it's changing the way they have to do their jobs. Basically, what that means is the way that certain data needs to be protected is now becoming enforced by law, really is what it is. So PII, personally identifiable information, needs to be taken care of a little bit differently than other data. And with how much we use data now, I mean, I was just looking here, I think, 89% of all companies have already adopted a digital first business strategy. We're seeing IDC projects a worldwide spending of 2.3 trillion in digital transformation by 2023, we are in the midst of everyone taking their business, their side hustle, and everything beyond it to the web. And in doing so, collecting massive amounts of personal information. So the people that need to build out these products and services on the, throughout the digital economy now need to do their jobs, not just to secure data like they have, with cybersecurity the last, 20, 30 years, but really have to focus on what data they hold, what PII they hold, and how they're protecting that. Now, how this relates to Symptai, the IAPP, and Andrew here is the CIPT certification is really for the technologist. The IAPP has long supported, the kind of first to privacy, the lawyers and those types of roles, general counsel and that kind of thing. Boots on the ground now is really our technologists, the people who are in charge of building out products and services with concepts and theories like privacy by design included in that. And what that means is baking privacy into everything you do, so that from the foundation of that product or service being built, privacy and protecting that PII is taken care of. What this CIPT or Certified Information Privacy Technologist certification will do is really give you the how-to to do that. That's going to be going over privacy enhancing technologies, which we'll go over in a little bit, but also some of the techniques and best practice ways to do that, responsibly. We all know this can be, a business advantage, a differentiator, and everything in between. But it really becomes best practice for companies to start taking care of their consumers and employees' PII. And doing that starts with having the information and kind of know how to do that. And that is
you said
CIPT.
You've said like a lot of things there, Baron. And
yes,
I
did.
you've said a lot of things. And no, not at all. And so I kind of want. So the first thing I think I'd love to kind of tackle a little bit, and Andrew, you can jump in here as well. You
Sure.
spoke about the technologists, you spoke about the technology professionals. In the context of this conversation, who are you talking about? Like, what would my job title be, or what would my job role be for me to fall in this, technologist bucket, this technology professional bucket? Because what you have just said to me is that, data is going to impact the companies in every way. So it's not just from the legal department, but it's going to be how that whole end-to-end process of how the company is operating. So what I heard is that data protection and data privacy is going to impact me as a technologist or technology professional. But for those on the call, or for those watching, who is a technology professional? Who's a technologist? Because maybe there are people there thinking, well, that's not going to affect me.
Right. Great question.
That's a great question,
yes.
Natasha, and that covers a wide range of persons that works in any company that you can find. So we're looking at roles like the director of technology. We're looking at software development, project managers, product managers, software developers and engineers, scrum masters. We're looking at portfolio managers, web developers, full stack development engineer, testing and QA engineers. We're looking at the security professional. We're looking at the network engineer. And it covers a wide cross section of technologies. It also covers those persons who are required to develop requirements for new products and solutions. So we're talking about the systems analyst or the business analyst that has to be offered, because it's not just about functional requirements or security requirements now, or your technology requirements. It's also about the privacy requirements. And as Byron said, it's not just about securing data, but it's about protecting the rights and freedoms of the individuals whom the data is about. And for most persons, when we talk about privacy, it's always looking outwards. When we talk about data subjects or the persons the data is about, we always look are looking outwards, but it's also data for your staff, for your employees, for your contractors. It's all of that information. So when we look at this course and we look at the roles, it covers a wide cross section of persons, and there are different responsibilities or different need to know for different classes of these professions. Mm-hmm. But this is where it starts. And I just want to double back a little bit on what Byron said about the Jamaican laws, right? Because in our laws, our information commissioner was appointed and started work on 1st of December 2021. And what that means is that a 24-month period begun on the 1st of December 2021 for companies, for data controllers to become compliant with the Data Protection Act. And so this means that we're looking at a start date for enforcement of November 30th, 2023, right? So I want persons to bear that in mind.
So what does that mean, like a start date of November 30th, 2023? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, what it means is you get a runway to get your house in order. In other words, to get the relevant skill sets, to get the relevant processes, if you're using technology, to understand the technology, to understand the laws and the requirement of those laws. And we do have other courses that speaks to the laws. We have courses that speaks to the whole management of a data privacy program. But in the course that we're talking about in this session, it's about the role of the technologists in the data privacy. So we have this tendency to believe that technologists is just about, you're looking at you're setting up networks, you're setting up firewalls, and you don't have to concern yourself with anything else apart from, getting the user access to data. But it goes much farther than that. And that's what this course intends to cover. And we'll be touching on some of those pointers as we go through this discussion this morning.
Got you. So I have a cheeky question to ask. So given what you have just said, Andrew, and given what you have just said, Byron, why should I, as a technology professional, be trained when my company can outsource these duties to someone external? Why is it important for me as someone within the company to be trained?
Listen, the ultimate responsibility for the data lies within the company, and that lies from the executives all the way down, right? You can outsource some things, but the responsibility and the accountability lies with the organization. So if you don't know what you need to do, then you won't know what to outsource in any case, right? so you have to know yourself, you have to understand yourself, you have to understand your operations and your business, and you have to understand what threatens your operations and your business. That's what you know. Somebody that you outsource would not know that for you. They would have to come in and do extensive study, and in any case become a part of you. So you have to be the one that provides the direction for the persons that you're going to employ to do your program. So both have to work together in concert.
Byron, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I would add, going back to the legal side of things, we've seen around the world, and just my perspective from my work at the IAPP, we've seen that around the world that the DPAs really look favorably at due diligence, right? And part of that is training. If you take those first few steps to make sure your biggest risk, right, your employees know what they're doing and how to raise their hand and say, hey, is this PII? Should we really be sending this over to this vendor or that, or collecting this information? Are we using it for anything? Looking at the steps of the data lifecycle, right? Collection, storage, use, sharing, and then deletion. You want to, if you're part of that life cycle, you kind of want to know what's going on with PII. And that's going to make you as a professional, right? You were asking about, why does a technologist need to know about that? This is first going to differentiate you, and second, make you kind of a safe bet for your company and for your profession, right? You're learning the best practice, how to take care of PII. We know that consumers have a higher level of trust when they know that their data is being protected. And to kind of take care of and keep brand reputation, you want to employ the best, and part of that is being trained up and certified. This is going to validate the knowledge of that, those best practice processes. I'd also say for the technologist, I think we haven't yet got to it. Gartner is expecting 75% of the world's population to be under some sort of comprehensive privacy law, I think by 2023. This isn't going anywhere. This is the new norm, right? We work with so much data. If you're not thinking about privacy, or companies not thinking about privacy, and if you're a technologist and building out these things and not thinking about privacy, it's gonna run right over you. This is cybersecurity maybe 10, 15 years ago, right? The 8570 list, 8140 lists were being created to say, hey, you need to have this information to do this work. We're already having DPAs pretty much saying that, hey, IAPP certifications are a gold standard, are a good showing of how to do privacy right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And Byron, if due diligence don't get you, and if the benefits, the trust that you get from your subjects doesn't help, then the laws also have fines and penalties. Exactly. That should help you to make that decision and to know that. A little
motivator there. Yeah.
Of course, 4% of your global annual turnover is not any
nothing to sneeze at.
It's not a drop in the bucket. Nothing to sneeze at. So we have to bear that in mind, and the fact that an executive could find themselves imprisoned if they can't come up with penalties.
Personally liable. Yeah,
they're personally liable, and so, they can get charged from two sides. It would be the regulator, but the data subject can also bring charges and maybe eligible to get a payout from a data controller who has not taken use the opportunity to do the due diligence as it relates to their data.
So I'm hearing that there's motivation from a regulation standpoint, there's motivation from a financial standpoint in terms of avoiding fines, but then there's also the motivation in terms of stepping into this new norm, or this environment in which we're going to be operating in. As a technology professional, I'm going to be responsible for the data lifecycle. I'm going to be responsible for PII. And so because I'm responsible, or aspects of what I do will touch on that, then that means that I need to be aware of the regulation, and that's where training will come in. Now, I have a question here, and this is for you, Andrew. I know that you had listed out, just a few of the roles in terms of who, falls into this technology professional bucket, and someone is asking about internal auditors. Would they fall in the technologist bucket?
Yeah, internal auditors, it's one of those roles that spans the entire organization, right? They have to understand controls right throughout the organization. And privacy control is going to be one of the big ticket items on the plate of internal auditors. So yes, internal auditors should become familiar, and especially those who are doing technology audits as part of their audit program or audit plan. They will also have to be familiar with what to look for. And that is to help the organization mature and to do better. So yes, definitely. I would encourage internal auditors as well as external auditors who are verifying systems, who are trying to help organizations understand their responsibilities as it relates to their financials and the veracity of their reporting, that they also take heed to understand what some of the privacy challenges as they go into audit, to make sure that they have a full range coverage.
Great. So Gentlemen, we've spoken so far about training generally. So we've spoken about this paradigm shift in terms of, we're stepping into this phase of existence where, countries are enacting data protection, data protection and data privacy laws and regulation. And so persons within companies need to have training to be able to operate effectively within within the framework. So I think we understand, training now, and that it's the unknown. So it's best for us to step into a space where we can get the training and know how to operate in this. So here's my question to you now. Why should I undertake this CIPT training? Like, what is it about the certified information privacy technologist training that you think will equip me to adequately maneuver and operate in this, in the framework of what's happening with data regulation globally?
Natasha, I must say that you sound just like a teacher. These questions seem like exam questions here. I mean, I thought we were coming on to have a good time, but here it is that you're asking these challenging questions.
Challenging questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So how about I sit back and I take some water and I say to you, Nooks, so why should I take this course?
Listen, as taking this course, it takes you through 7 modules, right? And these modules cover the role of the technology professional, right? So it takes you first and foremost through understanding, giving you an overview of what the technology professional would be responsible for. So some things persons would not know off the bat, right? The role of the technology professional, and it describes, your role in ensuring compliance with privacy requirements. Then it goes through privacy threats, some threats that we didn't even realize that those are privacy threats. So it walks you through the entire data life cycle and through your enterprise architecture to have you understand how every bit and piece of your operation can be impacted by privacy, or how on the flip side of that, how you may impact an individual by processing their data in a particular way. And in processing person's data, you can cause harm. And this harm may be subjective harm, where if you process the data and come up with particular results, persons may have some issues with how you process. All right, let me give you an example, right?
Okay.
I went on to one of the popular platforms that track location, right?
Okay.
And for the last 2 years, I can see everywhere that I've visited in the last 2 years that I have taken my phone with me. I can see the locations that I visit frequently, right? And just think about that information getting into the wrong hands. It is surveillance, right? So most persons don't even think about that. You think about your credit card. When you swipe your credit card from one vendor to the next, right? It means that if your credit card company is tracking where you swipe your card, they can basically be tracking your movements. In addition to, based on the vendors that you have used your credit card with, they can put that data together to determine what's going on in your life. The course also covers technical measures and technologies that you can use to assist. Like a big thing for most entities, for the laws generally, is consent. And there has to be technology out there to manage consent, because users also, data subjects also have the right to withdraw consent. How are you going to manage that? The course helps you to determine what technologies that you could actually put in place to help with that. Talks about privacy engineering, and it includes objectives of privacy engineering and some privacy design patterns that will help you to design privacy in your entire operations. And and also highlight some software risk. As Byron said earlier, a lot of us are jumping on, especially in the last 2 years, have jumped onto the internet, without any warning, training, or anything like that. And we're just putting our data left, right, and center everywhere, right? Now, when we're with the privacy laws, when you're developing these solutions for users to hop onto, you have to be mindful of the risk out there to the user's data and your responsibility of protecting that risk. Then there's privacy by design. And privacy by design has 7 principles. It says to you, you should be proactive and not reactive. It says privacy should be a default setting. For example, if you go to a website and it says, we're asking your consent to do this, it should not have the box to say yes, pre-checked. Privacy by default says it should have the box that says no, pre-checked, right? Privacy embedded in the design. That means in the entire ecosystem, from concept to operation and destruction, you are considering privacy right throughout. Full functionality, and full functionality is talking about, privacy does not have to be the enemy of production or good service or anything. It says it's a win-win. Then you have end-to-end security, because a lot of us focus a lot on the protection side of data privacy, but there is a lot more to it than just the protection. But end-to-end security says you have to put in security measures, and those security measures may very well be avoidance by minimizing the amount of data that you collect, or encryption, or maybe looking at your data schema to determine what group of data goes where to ensure that we can protect, we can focus our protection on particular sets of data. Walks you through that. It walks you through the visibility and transparency. The more transparent you are with what you're doing, the more comfortable you are with what you're doing, the more transparent you can become. And in doing and being transparent, it means that you build trust. And once you build trust, you're going to build your customer base. People are going to rely on you. And it doesn't mean that things are not going to happen. Things are going to happen, but it's how you handle those things. And we have had a couple of incidents at the start of the pandemic with different entities. And the aim of that is you're getting ahead of the speculators, right? So then you have to have respect for the user privacy. Having respect for the user means that you're considering the user. The user is your focus. You're considering the user in every sense of the word. So you're looking at things like value-sensitive designs. You're looking at the value of your company and the value of users. And when we talk about values here, we're talking about their core values, your honesty, your integrity, your candor, that kind of thing. So you want to be able to do that. And that's what privacy by design walks you through. And then we look at some technology challenges for privacy. One of them I mentioned, the whole business of surveillance, passive or active surveillance, right? So most of us, when we think about surveillance, we talk about Jamaica Eye and the video cameras that may be up and watching you, but surveillance from the use of your cars. Persons talk about NIDS, and one of the thing that came up with the national identification system, some stakeholder groups were concerned that when you use your card, if that data is processed, it can be used to surveil citizens, right? So it's to be mindful of that. We talk about other technology like cloud technology. The laws talked about, storing data in, if you're storing or sharing data, you're sharing data with organizations or countries, jurisdictions that has equal and adequate laws to protect the rights of the data subject and adhere to human rights. Now, when we share data in the cloud, for argument's sake, we don't know where that data is. Mm-hmm. And the cloud, for those of you who are not keeping up with it, the cloud is really a data center that is located in at a remote site, and that remote site could be anywhere in the world. This says you have to be mindful of that, right? And these are just some of the concepts that the course takes you through. I mean, Andre, who is a part of our privacy team, he may be saying, "Boy, listen, there goes Andrew again." Talking about the entire course.
Talking about the entire course.
Talking about the entire course and stuff. How are we going to? Yeah, but those are the key concept that the course covers.
So
I'm sure Byron have a lot more to add where that is concerned.
Well, before Byron jumps in, or maybe Byron, I can throw this question to you because it's a question that came into our Q&A, and I would just like to remind everyone who joined after we started that if you have a question for any of the panelists, please drop it into the Q&A section. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you will see a thing that just says Q&A. So if you put your questions in there, it's easier for us to get to if they're posted in the Q&A. So I think Andrew did a great job of kind of outlining, some of the topics that, would be covered in the 7 modules that you would look at in CIPT training. A question that came in from somebody in the Q&A is, how is this course different to the CIPM? And for those of you who don't know, the CIPM is a Certified Information Privacy Manager. So we've got the CIPM course, which I think a few people are familiar with, and someone was asking, now that Andrew has outlined, what's covered in the CIPT, how would this course be different to the CIPM?
That's a great question. So there's 3 general designation, I guess we'll call them lanes, that the IAPP has. The CIPP, which is really the laws and regs side of things. It's split up regionally. So we have an EU version, which really focuses on GDPR. Obviously, it goes through the principles and fundamentals of privacy around the globe. We also have the US and Asia one as well, and we're adding to that as we go. CIPM is really the operational side of things and how to operationalize privacy in an organization. The big thing there is that it's the first and only certification for professionals who manage the day-to-day operations of privacy. So this is going to include things like talking to stakeholders, right? Walking across the hall. If you're illegal, talking to the tech team, right? How do you get what's required from a compliance standpoint into the systems and processes that you're actually building out? The other big thing is really the operational life cycle and how to manage that, right? If you don't know what data you have, how can you protect it? So kind of doing that data analysis and almost mapping of your data to figure out where your data is, what's there, and why it's there, and then going through that data lifecycle exercise of figuring out, if your business strategy and objectives line up with the privacy user-centric strategies that things like privacy by design really promote. The other big one is how to structure a privacy team. So it really gets into, managing the different frameworks that are available. CIPM is actually mapped to the NIST privacy framework. So you got gold standard matching up with international standard. And that's really going to help you use a framework that's going to be most helpful and that you can use forever, right? If you're setting yourself up with a good foundation, it's going to be a great way to go forward. And governments, DPAs, et cetera, are seeing that as best practice and the way to do that. The last but not least is how to develop and implement a privacy program framework. And that's going to really help you, like I was talking about, align business objectives with your privacy goals. Doing that the right way will make your business more efficient, but also, like Andrew was talking about, keep you that trusted either vendor or company. I think a lot of times we think about just the consumers, but for those industries, and I know Jamaica has a very large financial insurance industry, those industries that are in charge of, trust in general, but also, maybe working with other companies, being a good vendor, or being a vendor option at all. Privacy is something you need to think about because, people or companies are going to be able to choose between those privacy conscious or privacy first organizations and those that aren't. And if you are not, you're just going to get left in the dust. So that's CIPM in general. CIPP, really the laws and regs, not necessarily more I hate to just stop at legal, but it really is like, hey, do you understand what's being required of you from a legal standpoint? And then the CIPT is not just for the people who are building the products and services, but the people who are part of that data lifecycle, where really you are either touching PII or building out the strategies for using PII, or in charge of deletion or retention or any of those things that have to do with good data stewardship.
Gotcha. So I understand my CIPM, and then I understand my CIPT. So Byron, this is just a question for you now, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So why should I take the CIPT training from IAPP? Like, how is this certification gonna be, valid for me, or what is it gonna do for me? Why should I be doing, because I'm sure there are other certification courses out there. So what is it about the CIPT course that's offered by the IAPP?
Yeah, there's a little bit of competition, but nothing that really, the certification really validates your knowledge of the tools and really the toolbox that we give you through the CIPT training. The CIPT training is going to give you a lot of information on the privacy enhancing technologies that are available to you, and somewhat make it easier to understand some of the emerging technologies that are available to be used. I didn't know about homomorphic encryption before I started studying for CIPT. Being able to do calculations on data while it's still encrypted so that neither party can see that data is absolutely unbelievable. But if you don't know that that method is available to you or exists, you're not going to be able to use that tool. The big part for the IAPP certification versus others is that we're globally recognized. We work with a staffing agency, True Staffing, globally. They are placing people in privacy, e-discovery, and cybersecurity positions. They pretty much have figured out that a CIPM paired with another one of our certifications gets you to the top of the list. What we've figured out is that the IAPP certifications, using the job task analysis and exam writers coming from SMEs in the industry, we really are validating the knowledge that you need to actually do this job. And with that comes a robust exam that's really going to challenge you and make sure that information is something that you know about. Again, back to the globally recognized, I think as technology goes off into the beyond, I think the world is getting a lot smaller. So being able to work with different organizations around the world and be able to, explain your expertise in something through a globally accredited, ANSI ISO accredited certification is the best way to do that, because then you can work anywhere. It's known globally. Again, the CIPM is mapped to the NIST privacy framework. We're also seeing, I think it was France, the CNIL in France, the French DPA has given us the thumbs up that the CIPPE with the CIPM is really like the best way that you can prepare yourself to be a DPO. So DPAs and government agencies are saying thumbs up to the IAPP, you've done the correct work and the good work to make sure these certifications are doing what they should to better the profession of privacy.
So I just want to pick up on something you said there.
Of course.
So I know we're having this conversation in the context of, the Jamaica Data Protection Act. And we're having this conversation in the context of, what's happening here in Jamaica. Andrew, you mentioned earlier that, we're now looking towards this November 30th, 2023 timeframe. But I want to just ask you something, Byron. So do I need, if I'm not based in Jamaica, if I'm based in one of the other Caribbean countries that, have their own data privacy, their own data protection regulation, legislation. So if I'm based in Cayman, if I'm based in Bermuda, Barbados, Bahamas, can I also partake in the CIPT training? I mean, is it going to be beneficial to me as well if I'm not based in Jamaica, but I'm based in another country?
Oh, of course, yeah. There's no regional restrictions or focuses with the CIPT. You'd really just get that with one of the CIPP designations.
Right.
So the US really looking at CCPA and the laws there. CIPT is really going to, the tools that privacy technologists and this new area of privacy engineering that we should probably touch on, the tools don't change depending on where you are. Best practice tools like encryption, like some of those things we've talked about. Everyone needs to know those, and I think it's really helpful that it's best practice for all of privacy people who are working on trying to match technology with compliance requirements, and then going beyond that and saying, what else can we do to keep user-centric? So yeah, no restrictions there. It is very relevant for the Caribbean region broadly to take the CIPT, especially if you're going to be dealing with the back end side of products and services.
Got you. No, I sense that there's something there that you wanted to speak a little bit more about on. You're talking about privacy engineering. What is that term, and why should I be concerned about that term?
Yeah, so privacy engineering is this almost adjacent role that's being created out of this recent regulation. What a privacy engineer is it's somebody that must proactively stay up to date to be able to choose the system design that is least privacy invasive. So it's a very strategic role in saying, okay, here's what my business objective is, to get this person their product right away. But how do we do that in the best way to keep privacy and user data safe and protected, while being able to utilize it to give that user the best experience possible? So we're going to see the demand for this privacy engineer increasing in the coming years. PwC recently called privacy engineering and the talent shortage around that, and we can talk about that a little bit, as a privacy megatrend for the year for 2022. The solution there is to invest in the workforce, provide resources, training and certification, and most importantly, management support, because without privacy engineers, it will be impossible to implement state-of-the-art privacy practices into our systems, products, and services.
Gotcha.
So look into that.
Yeah, so to pick up on what Byron said, like privacy engineering goes through privacy design strategies. Like, you know, you're looking at things like minimizing data, hiding data, separating data. I mentioned data schemas and how you should separate data, aggregating data, or some of the pitfalls of aggregating data. Take, for instance, if you are having a data lake or a data reservoir, or whatever the new term is now for pulling data together, you want to know that you cannot take different bits and pieces of data and identify an individual, right? So you want to make those considerations. You want to ensure that the controls are built in to the solutions that you're doing, and you want to understand what the enforcement, the requirements for enforcement are going to be, and prepare yourself for that, right? And you know, typically it helps you just to demonstrate that you have been doing due diligence, and due diligence is very important, you know, because if and when you have a breach, and we're not saying that doing all of this is going to stop you from having a breach. Right. If and when you have a breach, that will go a far way in determining whether or not you're negligent or you're taking the relevant steps, and that may reduce your liability if you know that act can be penalized by fine or imprisonment.
Got you. All right, thank you so much for that, Byron and Andrew. Let us have a look in the Q&A section. Now, some of these I've been incorporating as we go along. I'm just going to take a few of those. So there's a question here that, you know, asked, please explain what is said about the start date of November 2023. I think, Andrew, you mentioned your beautiful analogy. But if you would just like to repeat again, just really quickly for us.
So in the regulation, in the Jamaica Data Protection Act, the act was passed in law in I think it was September of 2020. The act came into operation at the appointment of the Information Commissioner and the Data Protection Oversight Committee. That occurred on December 1st, 2021. In section 76 of the act, it speaks about a 2-year period after the act is brought into operation, which was December 1st, 2021. So that 2-year period would take us to November 30th, 2023. And at the dawn of December 1st, 2023 would be when it's expected that the privacy laws will take effect, and data subjects and everybody else, regulators and everybody else will be knocking on your door. You're required to, as a data controller, you're required to register with the Information Commissioner's Office, who is the regulator for Jamaica. Right, in Cayman, there is the ombudsman. I don't recall there is a requirement for registration, but for our laws, you know, you have to be registered, and all of these things we urge entities to put these things in place by the 30th of November 2023, and it's not. From what we're seeing, a lot of us may have legacy systems and everything. If you wait until the last minute to do this, you're going to be way behind the eight ball, as they say.
Got you. Byron, there's a question here for you. It says, based on your experience, has the implementation of DPAs and supporting legislation in various countries caused major changes to national retention policies?
Yeah, great question. I'm not a super expert on this, but I know it definitely has. We're seeing strict requirements and also best practice and ways to do this, how to better set up a retention policy for specific data. And yes, that's just going to continue. I think we can probably look to laws like GDPR to kind of see how that's actually working out in the business environment, since they have kind of a head start on some of these other more recent laws. Definitely take a deep look into retention policies, why you have data, why you're storing it, what you're using it for. If you're storing it, make sure you're using it for a good reason. And if you're storing it, make sure it's stored in a way that will protect that PII. Definitely something to look into. Also look into the privacy enhancing technologies. These are technologies that support privacy or data protection features. These can help you with solutions to problems like retention and deletion, and how to manage schedules for both. And I'm not sure if Symptai could maybe add some more on that side, from a more consulting legal side of things. You guys probably do that a little bit more.
Sure, Baron. The DPA as it is now does not say anything about retention. I think that will be developed in regulations. But there are other laws. The enactment of the DPA does not mean that everything else goes out the door. So there are retention policies for financial records, for example, and those also have to be considered. So when you're looking at your organization, you look at all the standards and regulations and the laws that you have to be compliant with, whether it be from a standards perspective, PCI DSS, from the Electronic Transactions Act, all of those things you have to consider. And when you're coming up with your retention policies. And Natasha, let me just point something out. As I said, Electronic Transactions Act just now, it occurred to me that we haven't mentioned since we've been having this conversation, that the Jamaica Data Protection Act is not only, though we're talking about technologies and the technology right now, it's not only about electronic records. It's about data that is stored in a filing system.
You mean in my manila folder? In the filing cabinet?
in the filing cabinet. If you throw that out in the garbage tomorrow and it has information on individuals and that information is breached, then persons can have
Or
recourse.
the information I have written down in my book, in my customer book with the customer information.
It depends on and a lot of that will depend on it will depend a lot on volume too, right? So yeah, there are things to be considered when we're talking about data or information. It's not just about the electronic ones. Not
just about electronic. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that that wake-up call on that. I have another question here. And it's a follow-on, I think, in terms of when we're looking at technology professionals. So the question is, should every team have a quality and assurance compliance officer?
Should every team? It depends on, it will depend a lot on your model. So when you're looking at, you don't implement solutions without context, right? And there'll be contextual integrity that is talking about this and BAM's contextual integrity that will be spoken about in these courses. You don't just look at things outside of context. You have to look at your entire organization. I usually start with your vision and mission and objectives of the organization. Why are we here? And whatever it is that you're doing, whether it be security, privacy, auditing, it has to be closely aligned to what you're trying to achieve. So if your business model is such that you're heavily vested in data and processing data and all that, and you have multiple teams that are looking heavily at that, then it may benefit you to have someone on your team that is conversant with the compliance regulation. This could be in an advisory roles, like a role. Like I would say, like in the development fraternity now, you have this whole business of agile, DevSecOps and all of that. What we'll be saying to DevSecOps team or DevOps team is that you should include privacy in that. So I'm looking at DevSecOps Priv, right? Because so it's not, you can't take it out of context. But if your context requires that you have that compliance person on the team, then by all means, you should.
Gotcha.
DevSec teams are one of those teams that should consider it.
Understood. So I have a question here. And no, this is speaking specifically to, what do I need to have to start my training? So the question is, are there eligibility requirements for certification? Does one need to be a privacy or cybersecurity professional, or no prior knowledge is needed? So if I want to go and register tomorrow, or right after this information session, if I want to register, what are the eligibility requirements?
So there aren't technically any prerequisites, Andrew. I'll say that for you first. Yes. Obviously, knowing what privacy is from a foundational standpoint would be very helpful, but you don't need to be doing this work already. I think especially in what we call it internally, are either adjacent fields or adjacent positions, where if you're working closely to that data flow, it might behoove you to take this training and certification, but also it might be a very organic kind of interest or focus for you to take into privacy, especially also if you do a little bit of analysis into your role and look out, at 5 years in that professional tract. Are you maybe going to be doing more with data, or have more of a focus on what's happening to data? That might be a good thing to do. But no, there aren't any prerequisites. We recommend about 30+ hours of training per designation. Obviously, much of that will come from your time in the classroom with Andrew or your instructor. And then also it's really, for the exam, we give you 2 big tools real quick, Andrew, 2 big tools. The exam blueprint, which is going to give you the breakdown of the topics and subtopics on the exam, and how many questions, a minimum and a maximum number of questions that are going to be asked per. Obviously, you want to study for this more broadly than just there, but that'll help you focus your study. So what I'm saying is you could look at that exam blueprint and kind of see, hey, I kind of know about this stuff already. It might make sense to kind of keep going and do a little bit of a deeper dive into that. There's also the body of knowledge, which is what the document that really connects the training in the exam, right? Because this is all ANSI ISO accredited, the exam's built over here, the training over here. So it's not purely test prep, but what it's going to do is make sure you've gone through the concepts, theories, and topics that are required to do that job efficiently, and then validate that knowledge through the exam.
Great. So an interesting go ahead, Andrew.
I want to pick up from what Byron said, because one of his last statements said it's not purely test prep. If you don't need a prerequisite per se, there's no documented prerequisite. But if you're doing this course and you intend to just jump in with no previous knowledge of anything, do the course and go sit the exam, then you may run into a bit of a challenge there, right? Because these set of courses is going to pull on every knowledge and experience that you have had in technology and in life generally, right? It's not about reading something and regurgitating an answer. It is about being able to apply the knowledge that you have gained from the course, apply from your own experiences and everything else that you may come across to go into this course. So I encourage persons, no, you don't need a prerequisite, but I would encourage persons to read widely, pull on all the knowledge that you've had and experiences that you've had, and come and sit with us, come and join us.
Gotcha.
I'll be happy to take you through this course.
So before I take you through, when our next training session is and how you register and sign up, I just have one final question, and I'd like you just to give me a quick answer, because we're coming up on the hour here.
Sure.
So the question is, privacy transformation will be an ongoing process rather than a point-in-time activity.
Yes.
Will the CIPT training highlight a suggested roadmap to achieve this?
Definitely. That's really what it's all about. Giving you the tools that are available right now to be able to do that the best way possible. Really quickly, once you are in the CIPT tract, and you have those textbooks and things, you'll actually get updated versions of those as they come out. So as emerging technologies and really everything we do keeps changing and moving forward, you'll be able to follow that along. But the foundational frameworks and guidelines, tools and technologies that CIPT goes over will be a perfect foundation for privacy right now and in the future.
Great. And I think that's a wonderful segue as we're about to hit our 1 hour mark. So for those of you who are participating, or if you are watching this as an on-demand video, just to let you know that our next training sessions is coming up. Our next training session is coming up, and it's going to be April 5th to 8th. And the courses the training is delivered online. You go to www.symptai.com training-courses to sign up. The cost is $1,495 And once you sign up, once you register at symptai.com/training-courses, you will receive an email from our team in terms of how to go about completing the process. Now, if you have any questions on what you heard today, or any questions that may come up after you've had time to think about what you have heard today, you can email our team at training@symptai.com. And just a reminder, that's training@symptai.com. So as we close out the session, I would like to thank our guests today. I'd like to thank Byron, and I'd like to thank Andrew for sharing with us just such a depth and breadth of knowledge in the world of training, and specifically on the course. I can see that you are experts in this whole world of data privacy and data privacy training. So I would like to thank you very much for participating. And for those of you who joined us, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And just a reminder that this information session is going to be available on our website as an on-demand video. So it will be available on www.symptai.com/webinar, and it's going to be available until April 1st, which will give you enough time to share with somebody who you think might benefit from the information that we provided today, and it will give you time to review what you saw and sign up in time for our April 5th start. So on behalf of the team at Symptai, again, thank you so much, Andrew and Byron, and thank you so much for joining us today. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great one. Thanks so much, everyone.
Take care. Bye.